Well, I'm gonna be reading somebody's story and hopefully not getting bit by mosquitoes. But then, if I have time and if I don't make this like 3,000 minutes, I'm gonna be able to talk about how, like, this is honestly, like, really how you have to do things. I would honestly say that as long as you're homeless, or honestly, even if you're not, even if you have a place to stay, but like you're traveling or you're like going to school or work or something, or you have to do whatever by yourself, you kind of do want to have like backstories to try to really just get people to leave you alone. It's like whenever you're not doing what people consider the norm, or you just look out of place, or like just being someone who's younger, and like I always say, as long as you're under 30, people are always going to feel like there's somewhere you're supposed to be that you're not at. You're hiding from somebody, you did something to get kicked out. Or you're being quote unquote grown, which is people are just so infantilized, and really, it's like they want to trap you and make sure you never go out into the world and do the things that you're quote unquote supposed to do according to the Matrix. But it's like when you do try to do them, people feel some type of way because you're not doing it how they want you to. It's just like a lot of mess that comes up when people notice that you don't have parents or you don't have a family. But anywho, warning, if you don't feel comfortable lying or being a bit manipulative to survive, don't do what I did. And to be truthfully honest, I don't know about the whole manipulative thing. I mean, that depends on what they really mean by that. But you're going to have a backstory to be able to do anything, really. Like, she would have just got locked up and sent back to whatever her situation was if she wouldn't have did this. Which honestly somehow seems like she managed to, like, get by without even leaving the city she was originally living in. Or at least the state. But I mean, Cali's pretty big, so you don't really have to leave the state for Cali. But, like, it sounds like she didn't leave the city either, which is honestly really risky. But you're gonna have a backstory. But you have to, like, have a good one that makes sense, too. And I guess I'm not good at that. Or either people just refuse to leave me alone regardless. Let me help you lunatic type. The quote-unquote I'm grown, you're a child type. And I'm in, like, a really bad area for that anyways. Because, like, I mean, I wouldn't really consider this the South, but most people do. And it's, like, it's just an area where I'm gonna constantly have to deal with the whole I'm grown thing. Not constantly, but, like, at least depending on where I go and where I'm at and who's really paying attention. So me and my parents had got into a big fight, and I decided to just walk out the door without nothing but the clothes and shoes I was wearing, which typically leaving like that in the heat of the moment usually isn't gonna work out. But anyways, it was about midnight and I just kept running until I found this hidden trail. I started walking down the trail until I ended up at this Denny's, which was open 24 hours. There I sat down and tried to think, and the manager there noticed me crying and came over with some food and started talking to me. I just started pulling this crazy backstory out of my butt that basically I was 18. I got kicked out and I had nowhere to go, no money or ID. She ended up telling me about a woman's shelter that was about a 20-minute drive away, but she couldn't take me at the moment because she wasn't off yet. I thanked her and went outside for some air, and this guy walked out of the diner, and I asked him for a ride to the shelter. Which, I mean, that could be risky, but you have to have discernment, and a lot of people really don't. But he agreed, but he tried calling them first, and they didn't answer. So I just asked him to take me to the fire station, thinking they could give me a ride. And I would say this is where she went wrong, because, like, that could be very risky, and typically police won't give you a ride anywhere. Because eventually she talks about how, like, she asked the fire department. That was very weird to ask them, but the police, definitely not. That could be risky because, like, they can end up, like, really trying to dig into you. Like, I even recently had a whole situation where the police ran my name. They said I wasn't in the system. And it's very interesting because I get arrested every 3 months. But that could have got me deported. And then another thing is that throughout the years when I do ask police for a ride somewhere, typically, well, no. They always tell me that, quote unquote, we can't give you a ride unless we're giving you a ride to jail. But I was told that's not even true by somebody else, but that's what the police always tell me. It wasn't even until that recent situation where the police ran my name where they gave me a ride to the Greyhound station, simply because they didn't want me in the town anyways and they really wanted me to leave. And so they were like, we're going to give you a ride out of here because you can't stay here. But I don't want to go off into a rant before I really finish reading this though. At the fire station, they started to interview me and I gave them a fake birthday or name, but they said that they couldn't give me a ride, so they called the police. But they couldn't either, so they called the care team, which I am not sure if this is only in California, but they handle low-level calls and they were able to give me a ride. Unfortunately, the shelter didn't answer the door, so the care team came up with the idea to take me to the hospital, and they told me to go in there and tell them that I need mental support for being unhoused. And this is where I guess the taxpayer dollar thing of free healthcare for like homeless people or people who like the hospital doesn't really know who they are, I think that's where this kicks in. But the issue with this is that this could end up with you having a bill, but I guess that doesn't really matter much if you use a fake name and stuff anyways. Which is actually how, well, I don't know if I should say what I'm about to say. But it's like, well, this is a smart idea. This could have went really, really left, especially if people would have seen the missing persons report. I'm assuming that her parents took a long time to put one out. But I mean, of course, though, everybody isn't going to see it, and everybody isn't going to have a way of knowing. So there's that, but it's like, it really just depends. I feel like, depending on your ethnicity and different, like, stereotypical stuff, depends on how much people are really going to, like, question you and feel like you're lying about everything. And also, like I said, for me, supposedly, from what people always say, most quote-unquote white people don't believe I'm older than supposedly like 10 to 12 and 14 max. I'm not even sure how true that is, because like I do feel like a lot of times that was just people's excuse to constantly call the police on me and try to get me put in jail or worse. But like, I don't know. I feel like that can even go hand in hand with how people sometimes like pretend they think you're homeless and then they'll be funny to you because of that. That's like a cover up for being racist. So they'll say, you can't come in our store because we think you're homeless. You can't go here because we think you're homeless. We don't want you standing near here because we think you're homeless. I said I wasn't going to go on this rant till I was done reading, but I might as well go ahead and say that it's like people who have certain privileges that could help them in situations like this really want to like refuse to admit it. Kind of like I talk about in the whole why I got off Reddit videos. I'm pretty sure I mentioned just different things with like the mods and how they don't want to admit that certain things do happen to certain people, and they claim that certain things didn't happen to them. Even how they do the usual American bullcrap where they act like human trafficking is a conspiracy theory. But I feel like, especially in situations like this, people really should be aware of the different risks that are like around them. Although, of course, I mean, most people in higher level SRA are born in, but still, I mean, it's just a lot of risk. Especially for lower level trafficking and prostitution, that's a big risk. I feel like maybe that's even a bigger one. But yeah, like the mods will try to act like the only people that'll ever get the police called on them or get like be at risk of going to jail are people who are quote unquote doing something, like if you're not quote unquote well behaved and if you're committing crimes. And that's bull crap. For one, running away is a crime. Getting kicked out also is a crime. What else is it? And it's like being homeless is also a crime. So like even if you don't look younger, which you really can't look age, but a lot of people feel like you can. But if you don't look younger, like if you don't have a missing persons report, you're still at risk of going to jail just because you're homeless. And I mean, you definitely should put a lot of effort into not looking homeless, but it's just so much mess with that. It's like, they just, I don't know, it's just really annoying how they act like everybody has the privileges that they obviously must have or have had, and they act like very common things aren't common and don't happen. I don't remember why I brought that up, but anyways, where was I? hospital, and they told me to go in there and tell them that I need mental support for being unhoused. This really reminds me of this whole situation when I was in Manhattan, and like I got frostnip due to my blood sugar was too low, and the shoes I had on cut off the blood circulation in my feet. I was wearing these like cheap boots, these rain boots, and I already have poor circulation, and like I talk about this in the mitochondrial dysfunction videos. Honestly, that was really funny, but a whole situation happened where like the police were like cursing me out, and they said that I just wanted to like go to the doctor because I wanted a bed. And it's like, I don't even think I'd get a bed for something like that. And honestly, with all the medical trauma I have in situations like that, which are also part of the medical trauma, I wouldn't want a bed. But anyhow. And they've been passing laws for years that make it to where if you're homeless, you could get locked in a mental facility or wherever else for multiple years. So, I mean, yeah, there's risk, but like it goes back to the privilege thing, really. But the point I was getting at, though, is that sometimes if you're homeless or if people think you're homeless, they're not going to want to give you a bed because they're going to feel like you're just like trying to use the hospital as like a home. Okay, I'm sorry, but I have to do it. I have to do it again. So like way back when I had the Part 1 channel, there was this one lady I used to watch on YouTube. I don't even remember how I found her channel, but she had the schizo label. And I mean, she definitely was a schizo narc. But I still don't like the label stuff because it just takes accountability from everybody who like is a part of the issue. Not only the person with the label, but also the family system that messed them up. But anyways, she was homeless. She was always recording people. She had a limerence obsession with some dude she met at like... Okay, I'm trying to tell the story without laughing. She met this dude at AT&T or something that she had a limerence obsession with, and like supposedly she would run around recording him, and she would say that like that was her husband or her meant to be something. She was always trying to like get a visit with her kids, but nobody would let her. Something else I can't remember, but overall I found her channel and like she just had different videos she recorded of different things that were happening. I remember this one video specifically where she recorded this bus going down the... No. She was on the city bus and the police were out there and they were blocking the road, so the bus had to do a detour, and she was like, the police are there just to bother me. And I mean, I understand how people get to this point, because I mean, when things happen throughout your life that are like done to you to affect you, you do eventually feel like everything is like to affect you or whatever, if I even said that right. But anywho, people were always talking junk about her in the comment sections for many reasons. One, they were always saying she just needed to quote-unquote get help. Whatever that help is, that would just quote-unquote cure her instantly, at least when it comes to the medical system. None of that is deliverance. None of that is like trauma therapy. None of that is anything that would really help. But people like to say the whole get help thing. So anyways, they would always say she needs to just get help, and she just wants to go to the mental hospital and fake being suicidal for a hospital bed because she doesn't want to do what she's supposed to do. And I mean, it's like, what is she supposed to do? If she's not supposed to go to the mental hospital to quote-unquote get help, then what do you guys want her to do? Like, she would go to the mental hospital for a couple of days and people would be like, she just wants to get a hospital bed. And I mean, it's like, I don't know. But so people often say that homeless people will like fake being suicidal and different things like that just to get a hospital bed. And sometimes there could be like issues with like not having ID and things like that, but it is really easy to go to the ER without any of that stuff, and like they'll still treat you anyways. Or they'll still tell you some little bull crap and send you about your day. And then like there's programs that'll pay for it. And like I already said, I mean, when you use the fake name and stuff, there's not really a way for them to track you down to get you to pay anyways. Unless they really wanted to fight to do that. But most don't really care that much. But I mean, I don't want to discourage anybody. This is definitely a way to do things to a certain extent. I wouldn't do the whole police thing. Honestly, I wouldn't even really advise staying at a shelter. Because like there's a lot of risk with that. One, you're going to get treated like crap and there's going to be more trauma. Two, you're going to be where all the predators are at. And I don't even mean the homeless predators. Like there's literally people that drive around homeless shelters looking for like people to kidnap. In like Slab City, that's kind of similar enough. There's people that go to Slab City specifically to find people to traffic. So, I mean, there's a lot of risk with that. and I really don't want to make this like depressing, but I mean, there's just certain things that I wouldn't do. But I mean, it works for some people. Obviously, it worked here. But it also wouldn't work for everybody. And like, she's 17. She has 6 months till 18. Or had 6 months till 18. It's like, depending on who you are, what you look like, how you look, you're just going to get treated so differently. And that's one reason why everything doesn't work for everybody. The biggest thing that I'd say you should focus on is laying low till 18. And 2, mindset. Which honestly, you should be working on mindset before leaving. As I always say, and I used to say all the time on the evidence channels, at 14, that's when I really focused on cutting everybody off and focusing on me and my situation. Stop like playing mind games like my situation wasn't life-threatening. Which I mean, honestly, it wasn't that I really had cognitive dissonance that bad. It's just that like when I got forced on all the drugs, obviously the point of the drugs is to, one, make you really, really sick, give you brain damage, and make you have all types of issues to where you're not really focusing on like your situation or what you need to do. It makes you honestly really, really dingy. Like, well, I can't even go into that because that'll be way somewhere else. But point is, I was already doing research on like trauma symptoms, mental health, on the spiritual side to trauma and the abuse situation I was in. But like I started doing that even more at 14. And I was able to do that because I was off the drugs. And well, honestly, I've been off the drugs, but I was put back on for like a week or two. And I was in a coma for a while because of that. And then when I came out the coma, that's when I really started focusing on doing more research as much as possible and focusing on how I could get out of my situation and how I could like fix my mindset even more for when I was ready to run and just for like, I don't know, figuring something out in the future. Okay, I really have to throw in one last thing before I start reading again. I mentioned this before. A lot of people have this idea that like when they turn 18 things are going to change. But the reality is, just like this one girl told me in Oregon, 18 is the worst age for street kids because you're legally an adult, but you still can't do jack. Although I will say you can do enough to like possibly fix your situation. But I mean, it's still going to be a process. But it's like a lot of people, they just focus on the legalities and the fact that they won't have to like hide anymore, which honestly, that depends on your situation. And if you're still homeless, you're still going to have to do a lot of hiding and laying low because you're still going to be like at risk of going to jail every day. Especially depending on where you're at. In places with like lower homeless populations, it kind of goes two ways. They either really want you gone because they don't want the homeless population to start, or they don't really care too much because there's not so many homeless people where they feel like they need to like lock everybody up and start taking people out. Something else I've mentioned before is this quote from Nova from Soft White Underbelly. She said that she used to always say, I can't wait till I'm 18, but then she started to think about it and she was like, well, what the F is going to change when I'm 18? Nothing's going to change unless like she changes her mind or whatever, stuff like that. And honestly, a lot of people don't realize that, and it's not even because of like them not really thinking it through her age. I really think it's mostly because of like magical thinking. You want a better situation for yourself, but like depending on how long your wait till 18 is, or just depending on how much bullcrap happens and what situations you throw yourself in while laying low and while being homeless or whatever, that could also affect like your mindset by the time you're 18. So like, are you in jail already by then for no reason or for a reason? Or like, has so much bullcrap happened to you to where you've gotten more trauma to where like you don't even have hope anymore? Or like, can you still not get your vital records? Are you able to work a job before leaving or while laying low, which 99% of people aren't. They can't get their vital records, they can't work because they're a missing person, they can't work because quote unquote they're not old enough, which really, if somebody tells you that they don't want to hire you because you're not old enough, they really just don't want to hire you, but they don't want to tell you the real reason. I'm not even going to go into that. But there's also just a lot of ageism with hiring as well, even people in their 20s. And so it's like when you're in certain abuse situations, the most common one these days, you go through financial abuse and infantilization. So you're either not able to work, or you are able to work or you're forced to work, but all your money is stolen from you and used for like your parents and their drug habits, whatever in the world they use your money for. But if you're able to work before leaving, you could already have some saved up, but that also depends on like if you're able to get a cash app under some random person that's 18 plus that isn't connected to your abusers. A lot of people aren't able to do that. I was lucky to be able to do that. But there was even like some bullcrap with that because I don't know what happened to that dude. Not even gonna lie. He was 19 when I met him, and I have a video where like I talk about that situation, how honestly he went through a lot of bullcrap, but if more people were like him, like a lot of people's situations would be way easier because he did like try to help a lot of people. But anyways, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I wish he would have like enabled for me to like do investing though, but he kind of disappeared off and on because I had way more money a couple years ago than I do now. But anywho, it's like, what was I talking about? I don't even remember. I'm not sure where I was last at, but I'd already recorded audio over the second screenshot, and that is not what I meant to do. But unhoused, they ended up taking me to the county mental facility, where I stayed there until they could find me a treatment center. At the county facility, well, a treatment center. What does she mean by that? Because one of the things with that is that for some of these rehab type places, they like actually will drug test people these days and make sure you're actually on drugs to give you a place to stay, because they started to realize that people were lying and saying that they were on drugs just to get a place to stay, which is honestly absurd. But there's that. But if she means like more so mental health, going to a long-term facility, that could just honestly be so dangerous and risky. But that's something that probably wouldn't even be able to happen without like vital records and medical insurance anyway. But it's like, unless maybe some program paid for it, which that could happen too, maybe. But like, I don't know. It's just some people are able to figure some things out or just slip through the cracks. And like I already said, everything doesn't work for everybody. And even this person said that. So, I don't know. I wouldn't want to do it. I'm trying to remember where I was even at. At the county facility, I came up with the craziest backstory ever, that I was born with the midwife, so there is no hospital record of me. My mother abandoned me when I was 5 at this daycare, and a lady whose daughter was also in the daycare took me in and raised me up until I was 18, but she never reported me to CPS or the government, and she never enrolled me in any formal schooling. She only taught me with books. I truly believe that this backstory and fake name and birthday was the only reason I was able to survive. Again, if you're not comfortable with lying, don't do this. Anyways, they took me to this treatment center, and there they had a social worker who got me on the wait list for 2 shelters. One was only for 2 weeks long, but the other you could stay there for up to 4 months until you would have to pay rent to stay there permanently. That's something else I noticed. So there's like shelters that you have to pay to live at. It kind of reminds me of like how, since you're a federal minor till 26, there aren't any programs that are in the business of housing people that are like really even in their 20s, but especially like teenagers or anything. And so it's like they want you to pay to live at group homes, like full of like, it's like foster kids there, but other homeless people too. And there's places that literally want you to pay to live at a group home. But I'm not going to go into that though. What I really want to talk about though is that people are always like saying that homeless people should just go to shelters and put all the other issues of shelters to the side. For one, unless you lie about your age, you can't go to a shelter under 18. 2, why do people feel like shelters are just places that homeless people can go to be out of everybody's faces? It's like law enforcement and other people want homeless people to just like be out of everyone's face and go hide somewhere all day, but like most shelters don't even work like that. Like the typical shelter isn't even 30 days. Like I used to think that before I like really started to know about shelters, because like I always would avoid shelters anyways. but it's not even 30 days. The typical shelter, you go there at about 10 p.m. at night and you have to leave somewhere from 4 a.m. to 6. And if you're lucky, or if you stay somewhere where there's youth shelters, which is really just like certain places in the West Coast, especially Oregon, then you could stay till 8 a.m. Other than that, you go at 10 p.m. and you leave at 4 a.m. or 5. Then there's 30 days, and then there's 6 months. But then this says 4 months, and that's honestly kind of interesting too. But yeah, people think that like shelters are places to put homeless people so you can get them out of your face, but that's not even really how that works. For my case, I was lucky because there were only 6 months until I would turn 18. And my plan was to basically return home on my 18th birthday to get all of the things like documents and personal stuff. I was okay with returning home because I knew that I could just call the police if my parents refused to give me my stuff, then legally they would have to. That honestly kind of depends too. I mean, the police are supposed to do something, but I mean, people should know how police are. People should already know that. From the treatment center, I got placed in the shelter and life was pretty good. I met great people, and after I had to leave the 4-month shelter, I was able to stay with a friend I made in the treatment center. Now I will say that the reason I was able to survive was because I lied, but most importantly, I was lucky. My experience will not be your experience, so I do advise you to be careful. I actually almost got caught because the quote-unquote friend I made at the treatment center saw me on a missing alert. I keep throwing stuff in there that's not there. And sent in an anonymous tip to the police. And they came to the shelter. I had somebody do this too, but they didn't even see a missing persons report. They just wanted to like call the police and do the usual, oh, there's an 11-year-old staying at the shelter. And it's like, I'm not 11, I wasn't 11, and why does it matter anyways? People just refuse to let people actually get into a better situation, and it's really, really annoying. Anywho, I think I already read all that. They came to the shelter I stayed at, and the only reason I didn't get caught was because the police only had my real name, which wasn't in the shelter's files. Stay safe and don't ever fully trust someone. I'm open to any questions anyone has. And to a lot of people, 6 months may not even sound like a long time. But when you're in a situation like this where you're laying low, you're trying to avoid getting snatched up by cops and sent back to some bad situation, back to human traf, or to some human traf Ramco placement for leaving. Any amount of time is a long time, to be honest. I mean, 1 day, that could feel like a long time. Not even gonna lie though. Although I'd rather have 1 day of laying low than like anything other than that. I mean, so much could go wrong even within like 24 hours or less. And I also noticed that like she said the only reason she survived, and I mean, to a certain extent I guess I could say it is surviving, but I don't know though. I feel like everyone's situation is different. Like with me laying low, or even when I was full-blown homeless, as of right now I'm just like traveling. I'm also kind of like stuck, to be honest, but that's a side thing. But like just being homeless, it's like not a survival feeling. I've always liked outside, and it was like the most peaceful, well, it's been the most peaceful my life has ever been and stuff. And it's just so much I could say about that. So definitely everybody's situation is different, but I've never really felt like I had to survive. I feel like the biggest issue is having to lay low. Having to lay low, dealing with let me help you lunatics all the time, constantly till this day. And what was the other thing? Oh yeah, just like dealing with the trauma from all the things that have happened. I mean, even before I left, I couldn't remember really any of my life. Not even the day before. I still can't remember like 5 minutes ago. But it's like, those are the real issues if you ask me. But also, I feel like people are too eager to get to 18 so they can like be able to get a job and jump right back into the matrix and try to like have that false sense of success or hope to get to it, so they can run around talking about all the cars and houses they have and how this and that happened. Other people that didn't get where they've got, or like just sell pity and they just don't want to do better and all that. I feel like a lot of people hope for that, but all that's kind of bullcrappy. I mean, there's no reason to really not try to like have a better situation for yourself, but everyone should already know how that gets people and how it like plays with their mind, and then they feel high and mighty. And honestly, a lot of people end up getting really, really depressed because it's really hard to get there, and a lot of people don't know how, and they're scared to take the steps, and the information is really hidden. And I don't know, all I can really think is investing in trading and maybe trying to like get like a part-time job, but it still kind of depends though, because I mean, people are just too eager to jump back into the matrix, the same matrix that was a part of all their horror and chaos. And like, I mean, I even have some like survivor's guilt. I mean, I still do, even due to like different situations that happen with most street kids. Or, well, I won't say most, I'll say majority. I guess that still means most. But yeah, so I don't know what I was about to say.